Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. And well, friends, in the resources small company space, there is nothing more exciting than drilling time. There was a commercial years ago called Miller Time, but this is drilling time. And that is what is so exciting. And we always like to speak to companies that have that big potential upside, especially considering their market cap. And that is why I'm thrilled today to be joined by Shane Tomlinson, Exploration Manager of Taiton Resources, a South Australian-based explorer. And we are going to talk to Shane about the company, about its drilling prospects, and what makes it so interesting. And Shane, with that, welcome.
Thanks for having us. Happy to tell Taiton's story.
Hey, Shane, before we get to Taiton, maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about your personal background, especially on the exploration side.
Okay, so I'm from Perth, Western Australia. I grew up here. I went to the School of Mines in the early 90s. And in basically the first 10 years, I'd spent in mines, predominantly underground. And from that, I moved into basically exploration and res dev. And the last 20 years have been across Australia, so WA, South Australia, but also into Africa for a bit, across multiple sort of commodities. So whether it's gold, base metals, graphite, copper, or the IOCG stuff we're doing now. Iron ore was a big thing I'd done about 10 years ago. So that was in Australia and also in Africa. So basically, yeah, my main focus right now is sort of greenfields to brownfields exploration, and then try and move those quickly into res dev, and then hopefully into production sort of thing.
Got it. And at Taiton, where you've recently been, I suppose, mapping out, looking for a hole. And can you maybe talk to us about what is going to transpire over the next little while?
Okay, so Taiton has basically three sort of projects, and one of the main ones right now is Highway, which is in South Australia. And we've had this project for about since listing in 2022, and it was originally based on moly, but in the previous 18 months we've sort of pivoted out to IOCGs, and that's really been driven by the data we've gleaned from historical sources, but also through our own exploration programs, namely surface geochem, and also ground gravity. So ground gravity is pretty much the key tool used for IOCG explorations, and out of that you're looking for basically gravity anomalies, and then they basically have different tenors. So if you look over to the IOCG projects out to the east, they're not all the same. They're basically varying stages of the gravity response, but the ones we've had was basically up around 6 milligal, which puts us, pretty square with what has been done in the past and other ones. So that has really formulated the initial sort of target phase for this hole that we've commenced about a week ago, and it'll probably take us 2 to 3 more weeks to complete, depending on drill productivity.
Right. And Shane, can I just ask, you are drilling, is it correct, one hole circa 650 meters down?
So the planned depth is up to 850, but we have scope to go to 1100. So the geophysical anomalies were modelled at various levels. There's a denser core, which is about 3.2 density. So that's basically the proxy for iron, okay? And that has modelled at a depth around 600. So the hole's got to go to at least 600, but not to leave anything short on the table. We're prepared to drill a couple of 100 meters past just to make certain that it's done, because there is evidence in the past across different deposits, whether it's gold, IOCGs, and so forth. The holes are short. So this hole is only one at the moment because it's about proof of concept.
Okay.
Where we are is it's in the Gawler Craton, and to the east of us is basically the IOCG belt, where Olympic Dam, Carrapateena, Prominent Hill, all these well-known deposits are. And then to the west of us is basically what's considered like a gold province. So that's out of Tarcoola. and this is where Barton through their Tunkelia and all this are operating. We're in the middle of those, and this area's had pretty much no real exploration done on it for at least 20 years. Okay, and then prior to that, there was sporadic exploration because the focus was basically on the east or the west because that's where people were getting the results. So you're getting positive results out, whether it's Prominent Hill and so forth. That's where you're going to draw the exploration. That's just what happens.
Right.
So we've come along and sort of pegged this ground in between. And the original concept was about molyporphyries, and the molyporphyries is important for us in the fact that it's based on large-scale hydrothermal systems. So we drilled a program about 18 months ago or so, where we got these broad blankets of elevated moly and so forth, over about 1 kilometre in width, which is the scale of the potential hydrothermal systems in this area. Now, the other key point out of that was we were drilling Hilterbrah Sweet granites. Now, these are one of the rocks that are used in or host IOCGs out to the east, okay? The others are the Gawler Range volcanics, which both sets of rocks are where we are. So basically, we're sort of targeting the gravity anomaly inside basically the volcanics, hopefully for a Hilterbrah sort of granite as the driver for the IOCGs underneath. We won't know that till we drill a hole.
Right. And that's the whole point where you need to get out there. And Shane, I'm curious, can you just explain to investors that are not quite so familiar with South Australia and all the drilling and activity that's been taking place there for natural resources, why this area is so great? And especially in terms of gold, I think that people don't really appreciate necessarily how much gold there is in South Australia.
Yeah, well, that probably leads into our Challenger West project, which is one we've been working up, and that's basically from scratch, really. And this project sits about within 10 to 40 k's west of the Challenger deposit. Now, that's in excess of a 1 million ounce gold deposit that has been mined and been on care and maintenance for the last fair few years. I'm not sure exactly, but anyway, it's been on care and maintenance for a bit. Recently, Barton, who owns that, is looking to put that back into production, and that's my understanding is sort of like a lead into their expanding over at Tunkelia. But it's not just them, and they've obviously put some drill results out yesterday, which are pretty positive.
Yeah.
Also operating in the area is Momoto, so they had some historical deposits which they've been drilling out in the last 18 months or so, and been getting some pretty spectacular results. So in that particular area where we are, there's basically Barton and Momoto, and then we're further out to the west, and there's some other guys out to the east. Now, the majority of the drilling is pretty much just where the deposits are. There's been sporadic exploration out through there, but not anything of systematic or great density. So that's the opportunity for us. So we have something like about 1,000 square kilometres to explore, primarily for gold. But the other card we can potentially play is uranium, because there's paleo channels out there. We can see that in the geophysics. So they're the sort of things where we can explore hand in hand. So while we're out there looking to do the gold, we can also have a look at the uranium. So,
right. And Shane, at Challenger, are there any activities planned over circa the next 12 months?
Right now, I'm basically putting finishing touches on basically some soil programs to complement the lithogeo interp we've done. So basically, what we're looking for is basically soil anomalies that are coincident to basically north-northeast trending structures, which is what all the existing deposits in that area are trending on. So we'll do that work. And hopefully we'll start turning around some, crystallizing some targets that potentially we can go drilling later in the year. So, we're trying to build up that pipeline of what's happening at Highway right now, and then what's happening at Challenger, so that we can just keep the news flowing out in the short to medium term.
Right. And Shane, is this, when you think about running a company as opposed to a single project by itself, isn't this so important to just understand how does the timeline look, and especially how does it look compared to the cash balance?
Yeah, well, I mean, just recently we managed to raise 1.25 million, and that was done pretty quickly, which is in this sort of market conditions at the moment, and what's happening globally, was a tick of approval from our existing shareholders and also the new shareholders who came on, and they basically came on because they could see that we'd done the work that warranted us to drill this hole out at Highway, and obviously with exploration, the risk is there, but the reward on something like that is enormous. And if you go back over the journey and you look at people like Minotaur and so forth, and where they were and what they got to, this is what we are looking to replicate.
Right. It always starts with a drill bit, doesn't it?
Well, 100%. You can't find anything without drilling. So what my job is to do, and the rest of the team, is to basically to maximise our odds to find something significant and so forth. So that's how we've been basically building up the story out at Yogi and putting all the evidence around why we should drill that hole. So that's through rock type or geological setting on a macro level, so Gawler Range, the rock types, the gravity anomaly. We've done some surface geochem across there and some anomalous rare earths, which is sort of a distal alteration feature off of the IOCGs. The other key thing as well is we'd also done some timing on these things, because basically IOCGs have a temporal component to them. So the timing of the rocks where highways are basically the same to over east where the IOCG belt is, which is standing to reason if you've got these sweet granites and so forth. So,
and is this the type of learnings that you try to understand beforehand to give yourself the best odds of success?
Yeah, well, I think it's there is a blueprint on how these things get explored. We're not reinventing the wheel. What we're doing is basically looking at the key components, so the ones I just sort of mentioned, and then doing the work around it. And I can't stress enough that the gravity anomaly is the key. Now, the other aspect to it is modelling also the magnetics and so forth, and so when and the same with any sort of exploration, you're looking for elements that are similar to other known deposits and so forth. Whether that's gold in the gold fields or anything like that. Everybody, when someone finds something new or something significant, there's numerous papers, and that is basically the roadmap of how you go about it. Now, that doesn't guarantee exactly the same, because all these have variations, and that's why that's the beauty of basically the exploration, and you cannot know until you drill a hole. That's the ultimate test.
Right. So, and you're out there now. And and can you just give us an idea of the timeline so now you're drilling right now, as we're filming this, it's mid to the end of April. When should we expect those results to come through?
Well, the drill hole, depending on where the finished depth will probably take us another 2 to 3 weeks to complete. That really depends on productivity. But the drilling's been going pretty good in the last week, so positive on that. And then basically we'll process it, so that'll be quite quickly. Being a junior and so forth, we'll core cutting and all that sort of stuff. That additional processing will be done in Adelaide, and then into the labs in Adelaide. So probably initial impressions of the geology and so forth could be within, say, 3 weeks or so.
Wow.
The assays will be probably more June, I would think. But if the goods are there, we'll try and do as much as we can to move the results up the batting order very quickly. Right.
And Shane, what would be your idea of success here?
Well, right now we want proof of concept. So basically, we need to be drilling hematite type alteration at depth. Okay. So generally, what you'll find in some of these things is the core or the gravity anomaly is generally probably the hematite core. Now that may or may not have much mineralization, but it's around there. But once you've sort of locked into what that core is, then you can work out around it. So so this is why we've taken the point of just trying to go proof of concept with this initial to go, yes, this style of mineralization is valid through here, and then we can start putting everything around it. So, I've got approvals to drill another 4 holes up to 1,200 meters of depth, and the modelled dense core that we're targeting now the extent of it was about 1 kilometre in strike and about 400 to 500 meters in width, starting at 600 meters, and then there's a plunge element to it. So if when the results come in and they're positive, we're able to get out there and probably put a hole across that entire kilometre, and then we would be looking to fill it up with more drilling and so forth. So the heritage surveys and so forth. So the heritage group out there have been really supportive, very very easy to deal with, and get people out there and turning that around quickly. Then it's a case of doing the what's called an EPEPA, but the WA, it's a program of works, but it's the same thing. So we would look to move that, and then away we go.
Right. Well, Shane, it is, again, this is the time that for small companies, it really is an exciting period of time, if you will. Hopefully we have great results and we can follow on in the next half a year. Shane, if there was one point you'd want every investor or prospective investor to know about Taiton, what would that be?
Well, basically, we're out there drilling and exploring in areas where the rewards could be immense and so forth. We're going into areas where people haven't been. So just look over the last 20 years and the projects that really stand out.
Yeah.
They're new, basically. So that's what this is.
Shane, we are eagerly anticipating those results. We can't wait. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, I appreciate the time. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.